Hey YouTube, welcome back for part 3 of how to brew Beekeeper's Blonde Honey Ale. We actually have a finished beer here, about 5.5% alcohol by volume or so. Nice amber color here, pretty clear. I'm sure it smells great and tastes delicious, but it's not carbonated yet. So if any of you have drank a soda or a beer before, you know that when you have it in your glass and you're looking at it, it appears that the bubbles are coming out of nowhere, just appearing out of the liquid. And that's kind of true because carbonated beverages, CO2 has been infused into the liquid. So up until now, while this thing has been giving off CO2, we've had an airlock here to let off the excess gas. No pressure has built up. We're going to add a little bit more sugar, a very tiny amount, just to get a controlled fermentation. We're going to put this in the bottles and let the fermentation continue for another 2 weeks. And with the bottle being capped, it will prevent any of the CO2 from escaping, so it'll build up pressure in there. And by the calculations of how much sugar we're going to use, we're going to try to build up probably about 3 or 4 pounds of pressure in these bottles, and that's going to be enough to start infusing the liquid with the CO2, so that when we pop the tops on these, we're going to get the characteristics, and we'll have the foam and the head of the beer when we drink it, and the carbonation of that's how we enjoy our beer. So what we need to do is sanitize a bottling bucket, which has a spigot on it. We're going to have some hose, what we call a bottling wand. It's basically a spring valve. When you put it down into the bottle and press down, the liquid flows. When you let off, the liquid stops. Very handy to keep it kind of clean. We need 50 or so bottle caps. These are just some plain ones. I also have some color changing ones, the temperature indicators. It's fun to play with. They make all kinds. You can get American flags and fleur-de-lis, and you can even get personalized ones. So I have a few of these left. I'm going to play with those today. My capper. Basically, you put a cap in here, put it on the bottle, and crimp the top over the bottle. We're going to need 52 of those. We're going to need our auto siphon to get the beer from here into the bottling bucket with as little of the sediment as possible. I think that's about everything. So mix up some sanitizer. We're going to get our sugar mixed together, put it in there. We're going to rack the beer on top of that, and then we'll start bottling these beers. Okay, so we're going to heat up the water just a little bit to get this sugar dissolved so that it turns clear. Right now it's still a little cloudy. The heat will clear that up. But I don't really want to boil this. You can if you want to. Some people will say that you need to boil it to prevent any bacteria. I've sanitized everything that I'm using here. So I'm just going to heat the water just enough to get this sugar melted. Okay, we've got our bottling bucket sanitized. Our beer is elevated here. We put the sugar water into here for our priming sugar. We're going to give this a few pumps just to get the beer flowing in there. Okay. And as you can see, it's a nice light beer there. Oh, that's looking really good. Mixing up with that little sugar water in the bottom. That's called priming sugar. Just a little bit, 2/3 of a cup. And basically we've got the hose in the bottom of there spun around so that we get a little stirring motion. We don't want to get really any oxygen into this. But we're going to siphon all this down into the bottling bucket, and then we'll start individually bottling these bottles. We're mixing with the sugar now. Okay, so we've got all the beer into here, into the bottling bucket on top of the priming sugar. What we've got left in the bottom here, again, is some Trub. If we mix that all together there, that's just basically some yeast and water and stuff, and that's kind of nasty. If you have some hogs, you can give that to them. They'll really like that. So you can discard that, whatever. Now we're going to take this bottling bucket, put it up here, and start filling the individual bottles. Okay, so now we have our beer in here mixed with our priming sugar. We've got some bottles that are sanitized. Our caps are sanitized and ready. We've got our capper ready. Some more bottles on deck being sanitized here. So what we're going to do, we've got our hose hooked up to our bottling bucket. We've got our bottling wand. We're going to turn on our siphon. The beer is not going to really flow through too much because we need to really prime this up. We need to get it down low. Get it filling. Alright, there you go. Now, first one will have a little bit of air in it, of course, which not really a big deal, but we're just going to sit here and fill bottles, and as it fills up, once it gets right to the top, we're going to pull that out, and what you have is basically a bottle filled up about halfway up the neck. So we're going to do another one here to show you. Press it down on the bottom. The bottle fills up. Takes a little time. More time than putting it in a keg, but I like having it in the bottles. Pretty easy. Usually we have two people doing this. I'll fill them. My wife will cap them, or vice versa. She'll fill them and I'll cap them. But basically we're going to sit here and repeat this process. I'll fill a few here, and then I'll show you how we cap them. It's delicious smelling. Smells really good. So just make sure your beer is elevated above the bottles, and you can sit here and fill them all day long, really. That's 4. Just time consuming, really. This is the fun part, right before the hardest part. The hardest part is going to be waiting for the beers to be carbonated to drink them. Okay, so we'll do one more here. We'll have an even 6-pack filled. Like I said, this will make about 52 bottles of beer, so we've got quite a ways to go. We're not going to videotape the whole thing. I'll fill a few here, show you how to do it. We'll move on to capping them. Okay, so now that you've gotten a few bottles full, we're going to grab a bottle cap. We're going to put it attached to the magnet here inside the capper. Take one of our full bottles of beer, set the cap on top of there, and we just cap it. Pop it off. Basically now you have a capped bottle of beer. So come on to the next one. Okay, so I'll do the last couple beers here. That's number 47, 48. Okay, we got 48. We wound up with 49 beers. You can see I got a little overzealous with the capper on this one. Broke a bottle full of beer, so that's my party foul. But we wound up with 2 full cases, 48 bottles of beer. What we're going to do now is take this beer and we're going to put it back in a warm spot. Do not refrigerate this yet. We're going to put it back in a warm spot, and we're going to let the yeast consume this last little bit of sugar, and that's going to carbonate these bottles. So in about 2 weeks, we should be able to pop one in the refrigerator and test it out. So thanks for watching, YouTube. We're going to see you again in 2 weeks.